A young Tennessee woman narrowly escaped a kidnapping this week using this hand gesture. It was developed by the Canadian Women's Foundation and involves holding up a hand, palm out, towards another person and closing all four fingers over the thumb. It's a way for women to silently express that they're in danger and was popularized by two Quebec sisters on TikTok. This now the second time it was used to help a woman flee a life-threatening situation. To discuss, we welcome to CP24 Tonight Andrea Gunraj, Vice President of Public Engagement for the Canadian Women's Foundation, and Yvonne Harding, Manager of Resource Development for the Assaulted Women's Helpline. Thanks to you both for joining us. Andrea, talk to us about the inception of that hand signal. Why was this developed?
Well, the signal for help was launched early on in the pandemic when we knew that there would be a bump in risk of gender-based violence. So that was April 2020. It was just something that we knew would be needed, and we heard at the same time that there was a bump in this violence, there would also be an increase in use of video calls. So it seemed like the right time and a very important time for us to be speaking about tools for gender-based violence prevention and intervention, but also thinking about what we can do to promote people to understand this violence and respond to it in the right way in their own lives.
Okay, Yvonne, how does it feel to hear about this story today, knowing that something so simple, just a hand gesture, potentially saved this woman's life?
It's really overwhelming in such a positive way. As difficult as it has been to see these numbers increase, the one positive that has come out is that there is this increase in awareness, an increase in engagement, and a willingness for people to become involved and to look out for other individuals. So it's, lives are being saved, and that's amazing.
I'm glad you brought up engagement because, Andrea, in order to make this work, the person on the receiving end needs to understand what the signal means. So what does the story in Tennessee say about just how recognizable this signal is now, and how do you get more people to really know about this?
I'm very thankful in that situation that the person who saw the signal was able to respond. And we've heard of other situations all over the world where somebody has used a signal and people were able to respond to it. But for us, many instances that we hear that make the news, I imagine there are so many people who may be using it and they may or may not be able to get a response. And perhaps they're not even safe enough and they're being so closely monitored that they can't use a signal. But the person on the other side, the person who loves them, who cares about them, might know that something is up and they need to respond to it. So for me, it's very important for us to be proactive about how we address gender-based violence, like intimate partner abuse and sexual assault, and always be open with our family and friends saying, hey, I'm going to be here for you. If you need anything, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to blame you. I'm going to support you and let you take the lead. And know about those services and supports that are available in your community, like the Assaulted Women's Helpline, so that you can refer them and help them on their journey to getting safety and support. We want to get to it before it gets to an extreme level where there's something really, really dangerous happen. Get it to the time where there might be just an increased risk, some warning signs, people feeling uncomfortable, people asking questions. Be ready to respond.
Yeah, I want to ask a bit about that because you mentioned some women may be in a position where they're not even able to use that hand signal. What other red flags, warning signs could we be looking for?
Well, my colleague at the Assaulted Women's Helpline can certainly speak to it, but it could be things like feeling uncomfortable in your relationship, feeling silenced, perhaps feeling like somebody is monitoring your phone, monitoring your activities online, maybe yelling at you, maybe saying rude things to you, cruel things to you, making you feel just uncomfortable in your skin. And of course, if you're feeling like you're trapped at home with somebody, I think those are all red flags that might be an abusive relationship or abusive situation that you're in right now.
Okay, a long list there. Yvonne, anything to add?
Well, I think one of the other things that we sometimes see is people threatening. In addition to what Andrea has said, there's this threat of harm either to the individual themselves or to the partner who is violent, as a way of controlling. We also, isolation, we've spoken to that a lot during the pandemic. A bit, you know, if you're not seeing your friends, if you are, there's always an excuse why they're unable to get out. If there's always, they're, you know, constantly canceling at the last minute, a change in behaviors, those are red flags as well to, you know, friends and family. That maybe there's something, you know, is everything right there? Because we no longer see them. We're not in touch the way we once were.
Okay, so if you see someone using that hand signal, or if you notice any of those red flags or warnings that you both mentioned, Yvonne, what can you do to help? What should you be doing in that situation?
Well, certainly, you know, hopefully you've had that conversation to know what needs to happen for them. You know, maybe there's a safety plan where you're going to go to your friend, your neighbor, they'll reach out, or they make the call to the police because you're so closely monitored, or to someone else. And, you know, if you can have those conversations, that's so important. We're also here for women who need our support. We're also here for those who don't know what to do. You know, they want to reach out, but they're unsure. You know, it is that believing, it's that accessibility. If you're looking for ways of helping, you can call us. Our counselors will be there to support you as well, because it can be difficult to be a bystander in this situation.
I just want to pick up on that point, Yvonne. What do you say to women who, you know, may find themselves in dangerous situations, but who are scared to ask for help? What kind of support is out there for them?
Well, you know, every situation is so unique. They may be, not everybody wants to leave, right? Somebody may just want ways and tools for de-escalating a situation. Those are things our counselors are able to provide for them. We can, if they're looking for a way out, we can connect them to local community resources across the province of Ontario to get more information, find local therapy, find that shelter, find additional housing, connect you to legal resources. Okay. There's just so much information that we have at our fingertips that we can help and support once we have a sense for what the woman really wants to do.
Okay, good to know. Help is available if you need it. Andrea Gunraj and Yvonne Harding, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate this tonight.
Thank you so much.
So, are travelers entitled to any further compensation? To discuss this side of the story, we welcome back to CP24 Tonight Jennifer Weatherhead-Harrington, travel expert and founder of travelandlifestyle.ca, and Will McAleer, executive director of the Travel Health Insurance Association. Thank you both for joining us. Jennifer, I know you've been listening in. Let's just start with your reaction. What did you make of what we just heard from Savannah, Kylie, and the president of Sunwing Airlines?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? This is just such an unfortunate situation for everyone. My heart is breaking for those people who haven't traveled yet this year or haven't traveled at all, and this was going to be their big trip. I think this is really putting such a damper on this travel comeback that we've all been waiting so long to have. So my heart is with them. I really hope that they can get things sorted. And as far as Sunwing is concerned, I think that, you know, we've just been hearing nonstop that it's a lack of communication. I think a lot of passengers would be able to swallow this a little bit better if there was some proper communication there. So this is something that Sunwing is definitely going to have to look at in the future if they want to gain and maintain the trust of Canadian travelers.
Right. Everybody's talking about that lack of communication. Will, I want to pick up on what we heard from the president of Sunwing talking about this cyber breach. That is new information. What do you make of this development, and how rare is that?
Well, look, it's certainly one of the big risks that all the companies have that are doing e-commerce. And it sounds to me like, you know, these are terrible situations for everyone at the airport. And it sounds like they're trying to find ways to step back from the compensation side, which state, hey, within your control as an airline. And that sounds unfortunate for the travelers who are involved.
Right. Food, lodging, transportation. Will, we know travelers are entitled to all of these things, and we also understand that they're entitled to some monetary compensation. When I asked the president that question, he wouldn't give me a number. How much do you think people are entitled to? And that obviously depends on your circumstances, right?
Well, look, there's certainly compensation elements that are set out in the legislation. So, setting that aside, I think one of the things you look at with travel insurance are the unreimbursable types of expenses you've got. You're going to have lodging. Look, the other side to this are all the folks who are still away. Are they going to compensate those individuals, to make sure that they're looked after while they're at destination, can't get home? What if they need to get back? What if they need to get back for work? Things like that.
Jennifer, from your perspective, is the airline doing enough to help these people? Some who've been stranded for days. Some people are trying to get to weddings. Other people are traveling with their families, and they are describing pure chaos.
Yeah, Sunwing is such a popular airline with Canadians, especially going to those southern destinations, getting some beach time, especially for weddings. So I'm really feeling for those people who are, trying to plan that wedding as well. I don't think that Sunwing is clearly doing enough. I think that in this day and age, communication is so key. I mean, we have so many different ways to communicate with people right now that there should be a system that's put in place for an instance like this. I mean, I'm sure every other airline in Canada is looking at this right now, thinking of what would we be doing differently if this was us in the situation. So, I think Sunwing really needs to be stepping it up and providing its customers a lot more communication and understanding of what is going to be happening, not just right now, but what will be happening to their trip in the future. What if they want to change their flight? What will their future trips look like? And I think that's going to be the key for Sunwing to kind of regain any of this trust from these customers right now or from future customers.
Yeah, it's a big mess, that's for sure. And Will, some people are so frustrated, they've decided to find their own way home. Yet passengers, some of them at least, have been told that there is no compensation for alternate travel plans. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't sound right. But again, that's one of the reasons why travel insurance is an option for many travelers. Making sure that you've got that line of protection in the event that you're away and you can't get back. Knowing that there's also companies out there who can help you through this, that's not necessarily the airline. Those are the types of things for travel insurance and trip cancellation or interruption insurance that are there for them, particularly at times like this, unexpected times. Because remember, it's not just an airline problem like this. It can be weather delays that are outside of the airline's fault, and that's when you need the protection to make sure you can get home.
Right. And Jennifer, this is likely just the beginning. Class action lawsuits, ugly disputes, complaints. How do you see this playing out in the months to come?
I think that it's going to be a little bit messy, definitely for Sunwing in the next few months. And it's probably definitely putting them way, way behind their schedule of how they wanted to rebound after the pandemic. But I have to echo what Will said. You need to make sure as a traveler that you're responsible, that you have insurance in case something like this does happen. We've seen over the past 2 years that pretty much anything can happen, whether it's a technical glitch like this, whether something related to COVID or the pandemic. It's really, really key for travelers to look into being responsible and really researching and protecting themselves before they book with any airline, whether it's a low cost or budget airline or a typical airline. So, I think this can be a little bit tricky and messy, and I'm hoping that a lot of these travelers did look into getting proper travel insurance before they ended up booking this trip, and something to keep in mind for anyone who's booking in the future.
Yeah, something for travelers and airlines to learn from here. Jennifer and Will, thanks so much for joining us here on CP24 Tonight. We appreciate all your insights. The United Nations Refugee Agency says more than 5 million people have now fled Ukraine since Russia began its attack. More than half of them went to Poland, and while many have stayed there, an unknown number have continued their journey beyond Poland. The UN also says more than 7 million people have been displaced within Ukraine. Ukraine's population before the invasion was 44 million. And Canadians are now able to donate Aeroplan points to help bring Ukrainian refugees to this country. Aeroplan members can contribute to the initiative by giving points to the Ukrainian Relief Fund. The goal is to pay for flights to bring at least 10,000 Ukrainians and their families here. Air Canada says it is donating 100 million points to support the effort. They will be used to facilitate transportation on flights operated by the airline and its Star Alliance partners. Joining us live tonight is Helena Varonka, who made the journey from Ukraine to Mississauga with her 2 children just 2 weeks ago. Helena, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the program. How are you and your family doing?
We are fine, thank you. Thank you for your welcome here. Thank you for everything Canada has been doing for us. And we've been blessed to have our friends here. So thank you. Thank you once again.
I am so happy to hear that you are safe with your family. Take us back if you can. When did you flee the war? Where did you go first?
At first, we went to Romania. So it was me, my 2 kids, and a friend of ours from Kherson. It's actually the first city which was bombarded February the 24th. So we have some relatives in Romania. We went to them, and we stayed in Romania for a whole month with strange people. So actually, that was something completely surprising to me, something completely unknown to me, something completely unexpected to me. Strange people giving their everything to us, to complete strangers. So giving their flats, giving the money, giving the food, everything. We wanted everything we needed. So first of all, we stayed in Romania, and then my friend who lives here in Toronto, she invited, and she told me, like, it's the right time for you to come here. And we decided that we should go.
We've just been showing our viewers some photos of you and your beautiful family. You know this, Canada has opened its doors to thousands of Ukrainians, working with a number of settlement organizations, helping people find housing, work, and more. Are these temporary measures enough, Helena? What's your experience been like? Okay, my experience is like, I know that I've been very, very much blessed to have our friends here, because they do their best to help us. So we, fortunately, we are not undergoing all these steps that usual Ukrainians need to do when arriving to Canada, because these friends, they like help us everywhere. But I believe Canada is doing, every person who is helping, so they are doing their best to help us. As you know, the war in your country is not over. I know this is not what you want to hear, but if anything, it's entering a more dangerous phase. Just this week, Justin Trudeau announced Canada is sending heavy artillery to your country. From your perspective, Helena, has the world done enough to help your people? Has Canada done enough? I am a little person, and I cannot judge the whole world, but I do believe that Canada is doing the most they can. Romania is doing the most they can. Polish people are doing the most they can. We are so grateful for your support. How would you describe these last 2 months? Do you even have the words to describe what this has been like? You know, it's very ambiguous inside me, because I was not fleeing the real war. Because Chernivtsi, the city where I come from, is probably the most peaceful nowadays, because most of the Ukrainians, they flee war to my city, to my home city. And I was fleeing actually peaceful life. But I wanted my children to know the word war only as the word. I didn't want them to see the war. That's why I took them and I fled. I have about 30 seconds left here, but how difficult a decision is that, to leave your country to try and protect your children? It is pretty difficult, because we left my husband, so my whole family stayed back home. The husband, my parents, my nearest and dearest. So that is really, really difficult. Unimaginable. Helena Voronka, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you for making time for us and for sharing your story, and we wish you all the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ontario's long-term care sector is getting a financial boost from the federal government. Ottawa says it'll provide the province with more than $379 million as part of the Safe Long-Term Care Fund agreement. The Ford government is creating an action plan to allocate the money. It includes funding to hire more staff, strengthen infection control and prevention, and supply homes with personal protective equipment. Joining us live tonight is Federal Seniors Minister Kamal Khera. Minister, we've all seen the devastating impact COVID-19 has had, particularly on long-term care homes. It has really exposed cracks in the system. How exactly will this new investment help?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Scott. I think it's first important to recognize exactly what you said. We know just how challenging and difficult this pandemic has been. But when you look at the folks that have been most impacted by this pandemic over the past 2 years, it's those very seniors living and indeed those folks working in the long-term care homes. And I think this pandemic has truly showcased, the ugly realities that exist in these homes. I'm a nurse. I've had the opportunity to go back in my own community as a registered nurse to volunteer at one of the hardest hit long-term care homes in the province during the first wave. And I can tell you there are critical gaps and there are critical gaps that exist within the sector. And that's why today's announcement is a big one. As a federal government, we've been there to support provinces and territories since day one. And we today, as I mentioned, are investing $379 million to the province of Ontario as part of the $1 billion Safe Long-Term Care Fund. I'm happy that the province has signed on to this agreement, which will truly protect and ensure those living and working in long-term care homes are protected.
So where is the money going exactly? How can it fill the gaps and fix the cracks in the system?
Absolutely. So provinces and territories, indeed, this question is around the province of Ontario. They'll certainly be able to use this funding to take a range of activities in the long-term care sector, whether it is additional staff or wage top-ups, whether it is for new or renovated infrastructure, including ventilation, of course, strengthening infection prevention and control measures and training, and indeed providing rapid training programs for supported care workers, including training for students, workers from other sectors. So this is going to make a real difference in the lives of those indeed living in those long-term care homes and working in them as well. Right.
COVID-19 has been in our lives now for more than 2 years. Why now? Could this investment have been made sooner?
Well, Scott, I can tell you, since the beginning of this pandemic, as a federal government, we have been there to support provinces and territories, whether it was providing, immediate support with billions of dollars of support that we did with providing PPE to frontline staff, whether it was millions of dollars to provinces and territories through the Safe Restart Agreement, or it was sending in, human health resources such as the military and Red Cross to help in some of the hardest hit long-term care homes. Scott, in the last two budgets, we put aside significant amount of funding just for the long-term care sector. So whether it is this $1 billion, which we actually put forward in fall 2020 as a safe long-term care fund for provinces and territories to sign on, or of course the $3 billion that we put aside to ensure that standards of care are met and that permanent changes are made to ensure that those living and working in long-term cares have the support that they need. We have been there. We understand there's, of course, jurisdictional challenges, but we have been there to support provinces and territories to do this important work. And I think Canadians expect us all to work together, indeed, when it comes to supporting the most vulnerable in our community.
So what are you learning now as a government through 2 years of the pandemic and how you can target money specifically to where it is needed most?
Absolutely. I think we've certainly seen many gaps, and I think long-term care, as a Minister of Seniors, I can tell you this is one that I am very excited to see this money rolling out in my own home province of Ontario. But indeed, what we have seen because of this pandemic, there has been certainly backlogs in surgeries and wait times for diagnostic tests, and that's why our government just a few weeks ago actually announced $2 billion for provinces and territories to do that important work, to clear out that backlogs, to ensure that people can get that support that they need. There's awfully a lot of work, of course, we're doing, indeed, with also rural and remote areas to retain, to attract more nurses and frontline workers. It's been so challenging for them. They have been at the front line of this pandemic, and we need to make sure that we're there for them.
Seniors Minister Kamal Khera, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Scott. Take care.